My wife cheated on me with her former student. I contacted that guy's wife, and together we took revenge. There is nothing a person is not capable of when love is involved. I'm 37 years old. I'm married to Kate. She's 35. We've been together for 2 years. Kate is a college professor, and I work in marketing. We met at a party hosted by mutual friends and became close. We added each other on social media, but nothing happened for a long time. Back then she was seeing someone, and I was stuck in an on and off relationship myself. About 4 years ago, on her birthday, I congratulated her on Facebook. It was already past midnight. The conversation lasted all night, and the next day we met for coffee. She had no plans for her birthday, so I invited her to dinner and a long drive out of town. That's how everything started, and 2 years later we got married. Just a month ago we celebrated our second wedding anniversary. Life was calm and stable, until a few weeks ago when a friend told me he had seen Kate with some young guy, maybe around 20. I asked him what was strange about that. Maybe it was just a friend. My buddy hesitated and said their behavior didn't look innocent. They were sitting very, very close. His hand was resting on Kate's leg, and his lips were almost touching her cheek. He stayed for a moment to make sure he wasn't mistaken, and then saw them hugging. I asked if he had taken a photo, but he said everything happened too fast and he didn't think of it. Besides, it was in public, and he was afraid people would judge him for filming a kissing couple. Still, I trusted him, but there wasn't enough proof to confront Kate. You can't just label your wife a cheater based on someone else's words alone. When I got home, Kate was calmly reading a book. I wanted to ask if she had met someone that day, but didn't know how to bring it up without sounding suspicious. It would have been easier if we were the kind of couple that shares every detail of the day. Not that we hid things, we just shared what mattered, not everything. To start a conversation, I talked about something trivial. I said I randomly ran into an old school friend during a client meeting. Turned out he's now our customer, so we had lunch together. Her reaction was normal. "Oh, that's nice. Must have been good to see an old friend." I said yeah and asked about her day. She replied that nothing special happened and went back to her book. That's when I felt something was off. If that guy had been just a friend or colleague, she would have mentioned seeing him, which meant he wasn't just an acquaintance. From that day on, I started watching Kate closely. For several days I noticed nothing suspicious, but I couldn't let it go. So, I decided on the next step. I checked her phone. At night, while she was asleep, I unlocked it. Incoming messages and social media were clean. Just regular chats with colleagues and students. I checked the call log, nothing strange. Then I scrolled to the call history from the day my friend saw her. There was a call at that exact time. The contact was saved as Roomie 16. Meaning class of 2016. Kate saves her students' contacts by name and graduation year so she doesn't get confused. I froze. Sitting close to a friend is one thing, but doing that with your student is disgusting. I realized I'd checked her chats with colleagues and friends, but not with students. The last thing you ever imagine is your wife sleeping with her own student. I ripped a WhatsApp and found their chat. They have been exchanging intimate messages for the past few months. Before that, there were only old messages from 2016, goodbyes and wishes of luck. Apparently, 2 months ago, he texted her saying he was back in town. After graduation, he had moved to Texas. I couldn't read everything on her phone, so I exported the chat to my email and deleted the history. I wanted to read every word she wrote to her young lover. I spent the entire night doing that, rereading the messages over and over. From them I learned they had slept together while he was still in college. It started when Kate began teaching his final year classes. Rumi noticed she had a weakness for him and slowly started flirting. At first Kate joked it off, but eventually she admitted she couldn't control her desire to feel his body. That's how their affair began. But by the end of college, he fell in love with someone else, the daughter of a wealthy businessman from Texas, and after graduation he moved there with her. When Kate found out, she was devastated, and to comfort her, Rumi slept with her several more times before leaving. When I originally saw their chat on her phone, I had only seen the goodbye message and didn't scroll up. Now I was glad I exported everything. That's when I finally saw the full picture. Kate would never have confessed to this in such detail. What's funny is that back then, she herself was already dating someone else, which means she had always been a cheater. After Rumi left, they barely spoke, just holiday greetings. About 3 months ago, Rumi texted her saying he had returned to town with his wife. The same rich girl from Texas was now his wife, and he was working in her father's business in our city. Rumi was the one who messaged first, saying he missed her body and wanted to taste it again. At first her replies sounded hesitant, but she eventually gave in and slept with him several times, 4 or 5, judging by the messages. By the time I finished reading, it was already morning. I had work the next day, so I tried to sleep. When I woke up, Kate had already left for college. I made breakfast and went to the office as well. When I got home, Kate wasn't there. She usually comes back by 5 p.m., but it was already 7 and she still hadn't returned. Before, I didn't mind if she stayed late with friends or coworkers. Now it was different. I wanted her home so we could clear everything up. I had all the evidence, and there was no point in dancing around it. The knowledge was suffocating, and I wanted it over with as soon as possible. Time passed. My anxiety grew. I called her and told her to come home. She asked if everything was okay, since I never do that. Half an hour later she was home. When she walked in, I was sitting on the porch. She immediately knew it was serious. I had no phone, no iPad. I was just sitting there. She rushed over and asked, "What happened?" "What happened?" I repeated. "Sorry for interrupting your meeting with Rumi. That's his name, right?" She looked at me coldly and asked what I was talking about. I said there was no point playing hide and seek anymore. She accused me of making baseless claims. Then I showed her the exported chats, and she froze. She stood there silently for a few seconds, then said I had violated her privacy. Seriously, me checking her phone is crossing boundaries, but her climbing into another man's pants is fine. Well, I asked if that same Rumi was the reason she broke up with her previous boyfriend. She snapped and said it was none of my business. I kept asking until she admitted that her ex had dumped her after finding out she was sleeping with a student. I laughed and asked how someone could be so stupid as to ruin relationships over a man who had long moved on with his life. She said he was just too attractive. She didn't even look guilty and claimed I was being overly dramatic, saying it was purely physical with no feelings. She asked me to reconsider and said I was acting impulsively. I said fine, then pack your things. She stomped off and shouted that I'd regret this and come crawling back in 2 days, begging her to return. She was completely delusional. Asking her to come back would be the last thing I'd ever do. She packed while I stayed on the porch. She left without even looking at me. I told her I'd send the divorce papers soon and that if she had any pride left, she'd sign them without a fight. She said nothing and left. She acted as if I was the one at fault, as if I had committed some crime by uncovering her affair. When she left, there was something ominous about her, like she wouldn't let this go. If she had stayed calm, I might have let it rest. But after her tantrums, I wanted to crush her damn ego. I found Rumi on social media before he could block me. Then I found his wife's profile. It was private, but I sent a request. At the same time, I hired a lawyer. She didn't accept my request even after 2 days, so I didn't wait. I sent her several screenshots of their chat. An hour later she replied, asking who I was. I told her I was Kate's husband, the woman her husband had been sleeping with. I also sent a message where Rumi talked about her and her father's business. She asked for the full chat. I wanted to meet her in person but decided against it. I asked for her email and sent everything. She asked how I found out, and I explained everything. I told her to read carefully and everything would make sense. A couple of hours later she asked if Kate already knew. I said yes. She said she'd involved her father to deal with Rumi and went offline. I wanted to know how it went, but she hasn't appeared online since. 3 days have passed, and I'm starting to worry something happened to her. Rumi used her for her father's money, and I'm afraid he might hurt her now that everything is exposed. I've tried reaching her through other platforms and email with no success. I hope she's okay. Meanwhile, my lawyer is preparing the divorce papers. Update 1. Thank you all for the support. I really thought I was acting impulsively, but I did it anyway. Reading comments saying I was brave made me feel much better. Thank you. So, there's news. Remember how I said Rumi's wife replied? She disappeared for almost a week. When she finally responded, I didn't feel relief. I suspected it might be Rumi texting from her phone. So I asked her to call me. She saw my messages saying I was worried and called immediately. That's when I calmed down. She told me that right after reading the chat, she booked the first flight to Texas. She lived there alone and didn't want to deal with Rumi by herself. He seemed too shady, so she involved her parents. On her lawyer's advice, she turned off her phone for a week because Rumi was trying to contact her nonstop. Her parents feared that if he reached her, he might manipulate her with excuses. She said she wasn't stupid enough to believe him, but still listened to her lawyer. Want to know what her father did to Rumi? Classic move. They didn't mention the affair at all. Instead, they claimed there were accounting issues in the company Rumi managed and told him to stay away from his wife until it was resolved. Rumi couldn't understand why his in-laws suddenly became suspicious. Her father decided that suing for infidelity wouldn't hurt Rumi much. At worst, he'd pay some compensation. That wasn't enough. He wanted to destroy him. A few days later, guess who texted me? Rumi himself. He wrote, "Dude, your wife is insane. She's talking nonsense and demanding that I marry her. She knows I'm 10 years younger, right? Yeah, we slept together, but I'm not obligated to marry everyone I sleep with." Turns out when he told Kate about his problems with his father-in-law, she said I was the one who leaked the chat. But Rumi replied that nobody even mentioned cheating, everyone was worried about accounting issues. He thought Kate was just using the situation to force him to marry her. I laughed my ass off reading that. He's just as messed up as Kate. He genuinely believed his father-in-law was angry about finances, not infidelity. About a month later, my divorce papers were ready. I called Kate's mother and asked if Kate was staying with her. She was surprised and asked what happened. I told her the truth. She didn't believe me and asked for proof. I was tired of proving things, so I said I'd just send the papers to her house for Kate to sign. An hour later my phone exploded with Kate's voice messages, screaming that I ruined her life. I didn't block her right away. I wanted to see how low she could go. We were together for 4 years, married for 2, and it still hurt. When she finished her insults, I blocked her. A week passed and she still hadn't signed. I contacted Rumi's wife to ask how her divorce was going. Turns out she was in Vegas, recovering from depression, while her father dealt with Rumi. Rich people really know how to solve problems their own way. I'll post another update when this is fully over. For now, I just want to stop thinking about Kate and move on. Update 2. My divorce is finally finalized. Many people in the comments thought I might be dating Rumi's ex-wife because I worried about her. No, guys, not at all. She's not my type. I'm not someone who takes luxury vacations after every life disaster. And I'm definitely not leeching off her daddy's money, especially after seeing what they did to Rumi. Her father accused him of embezzling company funds and somehow proved it in court. I don't know if Rumi actually stole money or if he was framed. Even his wife doesn't know how her father pulled it off. I've said before, she lives in her own world and doesn't even know how much vegetables cost. This scheme was just a way to separate her from Rumi. He was ordered to pay a massive sum within 3 months or face criminal charges. The amount was insane. She said he'd never be able to pay it and would likely go to prison. It also destroyed his reputation far more than cheating ever could. Her father is a ruthless bastard, but smart. As for my divorce, Kate pulled every trick before signing. She demanded my house as alimony. She preached feminism her whole life, but when it came down to it, she showed herself as a greedy parasite trying to strip me of everything. Is that feminism? According to her logic, she cheated and still deserved compensation. What the hell? Luckily, my lawyer protected my house. Thank God I had proof of infidelity. I've read plenty of stories where people were betrayed and left homeless. I wanted a clean divorce, but she escalated it. I had to respond in kind. She told her co-workers she was divorcing me because I cheated and demanded the house as compensation. Of course, everyone pitied her. So, I did what I should have done earlier. I sent explicit chats with Rumi to several of her colleagues. And you know how people love workplace gossip. Within days, those messages spread through the entire college, and Kate became the main topic of discussion. She called me from a landline, screaming at me for leaking it. This time I was firm. I told her she either signs the papers or I send everything to her friends and students, and then she'd become a local celebrity. My voice was calm and cold. She knew I meant it. I never wanted to stoop this low, but she forced me. I didn't even show her mother the messages when she doubted me, because I didn't want to humiliate her. In the end, Kate agreed and signed the papers at the next hearing. I'm finally free. My friends keep telling me to start dating again, but I want to wait. I don't want to rush into anything. I haven't spoken to Rumi's ex-wife since the last court update. I'm not interested in how it all ended. We stayed in touch only until my divorce was finalized. Now that it's over, I don't want to drag the past into my present. Inspired by her example, I also decided to travel alone, not Vegas, but Montana. I hope a mountain hike there will help me come back renewed and stronger. Thank you to everyone who listened and supported me. Music, and now, let's move on to the next story.